All right, we're going to get started here. Welcome to the Pen and Autoinjectors Testing for the Future webinar. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Nick Erickson, your host for this webinar. Today, I'm joined by Landon Goldfarb, a Senior Applications Engineer at Instron. For those of you not familiar with what an applications engineer does at Instron, they essentially help our customers figure out how to test their materials, components, or products, either because they're new to them or they want help improving some aspect of their process, maybe consistency or throughput or something of that nature. So usually a customer would send us a sample of their material or products, and then an application engineer like Landon would take that material into our applications lab, figure out the best way to test it, and then provide the customer with a report of their recommendations. So in this role, Landon primarily focuses on working with the biomedical industry and has actually been developing test methods for use on the autoinjector and pen injector testing system he's here to discuss. We're also joined by Teresa Smith, one of our product managers that's worked closely with our biomedical customers throughout her career at Instron. She'll also be keeping an eye on questions that come in while Landon is presenting, so feel free to send those in at any time. So with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Landon.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Duct tape, aerosol bug spray, and autoinjectors all have one thing in common. They were originally developed for military use before ultimately becoming commercial products. In the early 70s, the US government contracted a company called Survival Technology to develop a simple delivery device for nerve agent antidote. Nerve agents attack quickly and aggressively, requiring immediate action, something not always possible in combat situations. Thus, the autoinjector as we know it was born, allowing soldiers to self-administer the antidote and give themselves valuable time until they could get to trained medical personnel. To this day, the military actively uses autoinjector devices for a variety of uses in this field. Naturally, this technology garnered interest throughout the entire pharmaceutical industry and was applied to similar situations where treatment was required immediately, as is also the case in the case of severe allergic reaction. Anaphylaxis is a sudden onset allergic reaction which can be fatal if not treated. Autoinjectors were recognized as the perfect delivery mechanism for adrenaline, more commonly known as epinephrine. Pen injectors were developed a little bit later, in the mid-80s, to address the increasing prevalence of diabetes. Insulin was required to be administered frequently and in the long term. Prior to the development of the pen injector, patients really had two options: a continuous insulin pump, which at the time was expensive and crudely implemented, or carrying syringes and vials around with them, requiring the patient to carefully measure out the correct dosage and deliver the insulin. The pen injector device removed the potential for dosage errors, and the ease of use made patients more likely to maintain a prescribed delivery schedule. Modern iterations of the devices have been further refined to accommodate new drugs and integrate innovative features to improve the user experience. Fast forwarding to today, automatic needle-based injection systems have become increasingly commonplace on a global scale. A study by Pharma Intelligence showed that of all drugs in the R&D pipeline, 55% will utilize an injectable delivery route. Injectable drug delivery can be accomplished with pen injectors, autoinjectors, pre-filled needles, and the newest segment, needle-free injectors. The injectable drug delivery device market as a whole is growing at a staggering rate, with an estimated market value of $37.5 billion in 2025, compared to only $16.7 billion in 2016, according to BIS research. The driving factors of this growth are twofold: the increase in the prevalence of severe allergies and an increasing number of patients with chronic diseases like diabetes or arthritis. Patients have been the most vocal proponents of these devices, and it's easy to see why. They're simple to use and can be self-administered, reducing the time spent at a doctor's office or a hospital, something that today is especially relevant. When looking at different injection devices, there are a few general criteria to differentiate them. Considering they are constantly being innovated by multiple companies, there are many minor differences between devices, including the activation type and the overall ergonomics. The first major differentiation is whether they are categorized as an autoinjector or a pen injector. An autoinjector typically is used when the need for the medicine is immediate and the frequency of usage is non-regular, as is the case with an allergic reaction, for instance. The patient will actuate the needle and the subsequent flow of medicine solely through the application of pressure on the injection site. Pen injectors typically serve patients with chronic diseases which require regular doses of medicine to alleviate symptoms. They will require the patient to activate a push button to actuate the needle into the targeted injection site. Next, we look at whether they are single use or reusable. Pen injectors are more likely to be reusable and typically require the patient to replace the syringe located inside the device after being used. Finally, we look at whether the device provides a fixed or variable dosage. Variable dosage devices are often used for treatment of chronic diseases, which, as they progress, may require an increased dose over time. Producers of these devices usually perform a combination of governmentally regulated standards and internal quality tests when developing and mass producing these devices. The pace at which these devices' technology evolves can often surpass the International Standard Committee's ability to amend the test standards, necessitating the development of internal specifications. The most widely used international standard is ISO 11608, which discusses the requirements and test methods of needle-based injection systems. The individual subsections refer to different types of injection systems or the testing of device subcomponents. When testing autoinjectors and pen injectors, the two most applicable subsections are Part 1 and Part 5. Part 1 is the most generic section and mainly focuses on the functionality of the device related to dose accuracy and reliability. Dose accuracy is one of, if not the most crucial parameter for a needle-based injection device. Depending on the device type, as mentioned in the last slide, the scope of this test method can change. For example, variable dose multi-use devices require the most stringent testing, ensuring that a minimum, average, and maximum dosage can achieve the required accuracy, and the last dosage error is below a certain threshold. Part 5 specifically tests the automated functions, outlining the requirements to ensure a device is both safe and simple to use for the operator. It dictates the necessary manual patient interaction with the device to use it without risking accidental actuation. This section also requires determinations for the activation force, needle length after injection, injection time, and needle guard lockout confirmation. In the past, many of these functions had been tested individually, forcing manufacturers to use multiple pieces of equipment and manually sort through all of their data to synchronize the results. This process slows down design evaluation and testing, potentially affecting time to market. With the growth in the injectable device market came a growing need for fully integrated testing systems. Consolidating these tests can be done with a standard electromechanical frame and the addition of specialized equipment such as optical micrometers and precision scales. This system shows a basic autoinjector test stand. The operator would place the device into the specially designed cap insert and secure it in the grips. Once they press start, the machine will begin the test sequence. First, the crosshead will raise, removing the cap and recording the maximum force. Once the device is clear, the shuttle moves by pneumatic pressure and the crosshead will move down to engage the needle shield. The software will capture the activation force based on user set criteria. Then the needle will be released and the ejection of medicine will begin. The optical micrometer, a convex camera, will measure the needle length and report it back to the software. The precision scale reading is a live measurement captured in the software and is used to determine the total ejection mass and subsequently volume. We use a proprietary algorithm to analyze the mass data to calculate ejection time based on the initiation and settling of the data points. Finally, the crosshead moves up, locking out the needle shield, and moves back down to either determine the override force or simply ensure the lockout mechanism is functioning properly. All of the data collection is synchronized and captured in the Blue Hill Universal software, providing an unparalleled level of analysis. Customizable graphical outputs provide the user a simple way to visualize the information. Looking at the injection graph, we can superimpose the force and scale data to fully characterize the injection event. There are also other different types of charts available to better analyze the information. Using control charts, outliers can be quickly identified based on the critical parameters. Within Blue Hill, a large suite of calculations is provided, even application-specific ones like injection time and delivered mass. In addition to the pre-configured calculations, user-defined calculations can be utilized to create qualitative checks to determine pass-fail, identifying the specific failed parameter of the specimen. This provides the operator powerful insight, quickly identifying failed specimens and the mode of failure. This information can help streamline failure analysis, directing the operator towards the most likely mechanical or functional issues. The software also gives clear visual indications whether a result is within a predetermined acceptance range, or whether the device passed or failed. The acceptance range is determined by the operator and can be conditionally set based on user specimen inputs. All the results and test graphs are compiled into the test report, which is designed and formatted based on user preferences. Additionally, the data can be exported to any required format using the advanced export tool. This is especially useful when all data is tracked and stored in a LIMS system. The test method interface is designed to be extremely user-friendly. Creating a method or modifying an existing method can all be done without any programming necessary. The interface has simple inputs with visual indications of what the machine will be doing during that step. Almost all step parameters can be used with Expression Builder as indicated by the function symbol. This allows users to have these parameters be dependent on user inputs, providing a flexible solution for R&D labs testing many different iterations of a single device design. The events and actions allow for even more intelligence to be built into the system protocol. For example, a user could require an extended dwell time if a minimum expelled volume is not met by the end of the standard dwell time. If the cannula were blocked or bent, for instance, additional time could be needed to expel the full volume. In this instance, the qualitative injection time result would report a failure, alerting the operator to a potential issue. Systems like these are quickly becoming the standard to efficiently test needle-based injection systems, reducing total operator errors and increasing lab throughput. The evolution of these devices is rapid, and they are incorporating new features regularly, like Bluetooth integration with smartphones and automatic reminders to take medicine. The modular design of these systems and the flexibility of the software gives the user the ability to adapt over time and remain agile as new products are tested and developed. Thank you so much for listening, and now let's shift over to any questions you may have. My colleague Teresa and I will be fielding them as they come in.
Hi, everyone. This is Teresa Smith, Product Manager. I'm going to start by addressing the first question. Somebody has asked, how do you address FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliance with the Autoinjector system? As Landon showed you, the system is run using Blue Hill Universal software, and we recently introduced a new traceability module to help users meet the requirements of 21 CFR Part 11. There's three main components to the module: revision history, which allows users to view all the changes that are made to methods, tested samples, and report templates; electronic signatures, to replace the need for manual signatures; and a searchable audit trail that tracks all the changes to Blue Hill Universal files. That audit trail also tracks all system level usage, such as operator logins and logouts, and it can identify if a Blue Hill file has been tampered with. These features, when used with Blue Hill Universal security features, enables users to know who did what, when, and why in their test system, and it gives them the power to prove it during an audit. Instron also offers IQ/OQ services to help customers meet those 21 CFR Part 11 requirements. This includes qualification of the system and the software, including the calculations in the software. So there is another question here asking if Instron offers the ability to change the dial dose. And yes, Instron does have a torsion system that can be used to measure the dial dose. This system uses Blue Hill Universal software as well, so the torsion interface is intuitive, and there are standard torsion calculations. Blue Hill Universal traceability module that we discussed will also work with the torsion add-on, and IQ/OQ services are available as well.
So I see one more question. Are there other aspects of this that can be further automated? So there are a number of ways to provide additional ways to automate, from smaller things like using a barcode scanner to either pull up a test method or input specimen information, or moving all the way towards a totally automated system, which uses a 6-axis robotic arm to actually pick up a specimen, place it in a test system, and then move it over to a rack when it's done.
Okay, it looks like we have another question here about training. So asking if there are advanced training available that covers the expression builder to auto-report data points of interest. And yes, Instron does provide advanced training. So advanced training is always provided for automated systems, such as the one we've discussed today to test pen and auto injectors. This helps ensure customers are able to get their systems up and running and generating useful data quickly. But we also often get requests for training to learn about other advanced features of the software, or even to educate users about their current system capabilities and how they can use those capabilities to improve lab efficiency and output. When a customer requests advanced training, we would typically have a discussion with them to make sure we understand their needs so we can ensure the training covers the necessary topics.
So I see a question: what was involved in training the camera to measure the needle length? So the camera that we use has its own software where you can set up how it's actually making that measurement. So it essentially is finding the lowest point within the field of view that we set. So it's looking at the needle. There's a backlight that gives the allowable definition, so you can capture the tip of that needle. And then it's also finding the base of the needle, kind of the centroid of that mass, and then finding the distance. I see another question. Could you expand on the last drop blow-off function? So essentially, what is happening is after the standard dwell time has finished, we send a signal to a blow-off valve that will open and close very quickly, just making sure that that last drop is blown off into the beaker that's collecting all the ejected fluid. So we won't actually do the total delivered mass calculation until that has happened.
I see another question here asking about the fixturing that is used to contain the injector, and asking whether the fixturing could potentially affect the test results. So Instron, we always do our best to make sure that no outside factors will affect the results. An alignment tool and a procedure are supplied with the system to help ensure repeatability during testing. We use pneumatic grips to apply consistent pressure to hold the device. And this pressure mimics what a person would apply. So we want to make sure that we don't apply too much pressure and potentially damage the device. Of course, each device is different, So the fixtures are not one size fits all, but we are able to make fixtures to accommodate any kind of injecting device.
So I see, is it possible to have both the pen injector and auto-injector test systems on the same frame, or would separate frames be needed to have both test setups? So those can be done on the same system. The pneumatic upper and side grips, those will work just as well with an auto-injector. You just will not be using the side grip in that instance, but everything else will work the exact same. So you don't need two separate systems to do both of those. Those can both be done on one test setup.
We also have a question asking how we mimic the user activation for the force that is applied in order for to activate the auto injector. So basically, the auto injector device is activated when it's pressed against a part of the test fixture. This is a hard surface, which is acceptable per the current standards. If there were a soft surface similar to skin that was being used, it would be very difficult to measure the needle length given the deflection of the soft substrate, and that could introduce significant variability into the test. So the current industry standards allow for a hard surface to use to activate the device.
So I have another question. Can you explain your validation process for the dose accuracy? Isn't there basis on the density of the product? Is that entered into the setup by the operator? So you can make the operator inputs as many as you want and whichever ones you want. So yes, if we wanted to put in the density as an operator input, we do that, and we do that actually because we need to use that to get from mass to volume. So the operators will typically either manually input that, or it could be something that's set based on the method. So if you know that this method is only going to be used on one formulation, you can just not have to put it in every single time. Or if you're using one method to test maybe one device with different formulations, you can just change it before each specimen is run, so it'll automatically update all of your volume information. So does the built-in scale need any separate calibrations, or is it calibrated alongside the rest of the system? So typically the scale does require its own separate calibration. It's a Mettler-Toledo high precision scale. Most customers will have their own metrology department handle the calibration of that, or they can reach directly out to Mettler-Toledo to handle the calibration of that unit.
All right. Do we have any other questions, Landon, Teresa?
No, it looks like that's all we have coming in right now.
All right. Well, yeah, if any other questions do come in before we do end here, just know that we will follow up with those after. So don't feel like you can't ask any more questions. Definitely send those in, and we'll follow up with you. So I think that's going to do it for today. I do want to just end on a couple quick notes. Today's recording will be available on our YouTube channel by tomorrow morning at the latest. Each of you will also receive an email with a link to the recording. Next week, I'll be joined by Jim Ritchie from our service team. He'll be here to discuss the differences between calibrations and verifications and dig into the range of options you have available to ensure your testing systems are producing accurate and reliable testing data that's compliant with not only industry standards, but also, but also internal standards you might have. You can find a link to sign up now on instron.com. With that said, I just want to thank Landon for presenting today. Teresa, thanks so much for being here to keep an eye on questions. Great job to both of you on fielding all of those, and thank all of you for attending and for sending in your questions. I think those were a lot of great questions we got. So I just want to end on stay healthy, everyone, and we hope to see you again next time.